Hello, my name is Cynthia Kane, and I'm one of several reference and instruction librarians at the Emporia State University Libraries and Archives. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use a database through the library that's called the Mental Measurements Yearbook. This database is very helpful in terms of finding reviews of standardized tests, their validity, their reliability, how much they might cost to purchase a test from the publisher, and so forth. Many of you may be asked or required to use the Mental Measurements Yearbook database in your classes, so by the time you finish this video, you should feel a little bit more comfortable and familiar on accessing it and using it for your classes. I'm going to start with the fastest way to get to our library's webpage. And the quickest way is to start typing www.emporia.edu/library. And you might want to save this address in your favorites in your browser, or you may also want to bookmark it. This will also work with any particular browser that you have access to. I'm using Google Chrome for this session, but you could use any other browser. And we'll go to the library's webpage. The next part is to click on the Databases tab, or the Databases link. And there are several ways that you can get to the Mental Measurements Yearbook database. The fastest way would be just to go here to the letter M, since we know the name of the database, and scroll down until we see Mental Measurements Yearbook listed. However, you can also find this database by clicking on All Subjects. And if you were to go into a subject category, such as education, and there it is, along with other education-related databases. Or if you're in psychology, you could go to the psychology subject area and scroll down, and you'll find Mental Measurements Yearbook there as well. It just depends on how you want to access it and where you happen to be. I'm going to go ahead and click on Mental Measurements Yearbook from here, from the psychology category. And when you're off campus and clicking on any database from the library for the first time, you will be required to enter your ESU username and your password. So I'm going to go ahead and do mine. And if you ever have any problems logging into a database, at the end of our video, I have the number that I'm going to show you, plus the email address for our reference desk. If you have any difficulties in logging into any of the databases, please contact us with that information, and we'll be happy to do some troubleshooting and see what's going on. So now that I've entered my ESU information, I am now in the Mental Measurements Yearbook. Now, this yearbook is actually a collection of yearbooks. It goes back to quite a long period of time. Rather than just starting to search here at the basic search, I always like to go to an advanced search. And the reason I like the advanced search is that I can limit and focus my search in a number of ways depending on what I need to find. Now, often you will have been already given, or you may be focusing upon the specific name of a test. And if that's the case, you would want to go up here to Select a Field Optional and select this category for test name. And I'm going to be looking up one that has to do with measuring the intelligence of children and intelligence scale. I'm just going to start typing in the name of the test. And this one may look rather familiar to you. We're going to be looking for the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children. You'll notice that I have different editions of this test that have popped up as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the 5th edition, and we're going to search. And when I do that, I have 3 results. It looks like I could look at one that is in Spanish, which is very helpful, or I could look at the 5th edition or the 5th edition integrated. Now, at this point, I want to show you something that's not immediately obvious on the screen. I'm not going to click on the HTML full text here. Rather, I'm going to click on the link for the test review itself. And the reason I'm doing that is that in just a little bit, I'm going to show you how to do an APA-style reference, also known as an APA-style citation, for this test review. And this screen is going to contain some really important elements that you will need for the reference or for the citation. Now, again, this is not the actual test. This is going to give you a review of the test to help you determine if this is something that you might be interested in using for a class or finding out more information about, perhaps contacting the test publisher for a sample of the test. And when I scroll down here, this will give me the publisher information. This is published by Pearson, so I could contact them for a little bit more information about maybe obtaining a sample of the test. This will tell me the purpose. The test category, this is in a category of intelligence and general aptitude. And very important here, this is going to tell me the population that this test is most appropriate for in terms of administering for a standardized test. It'll also tell me the time. And if I were working in a school or a school district that might be willing to pay for administering the test, this will tell me some test pricing information. Now notice though that this is actually from 2016. If I were actually going to administer this test in a school setting, I would contact the publisher up here for more updated pricing information. These are actually the reviewers of the test. These are the ones that wrote the test reviews that are down here below. And this is going to tell me that this review was first published in the 2017 edition of the Print Mental Measurements Yearbook. This was the 20th Mental Measurements Yearbook. This is going to be, again, important data that we will need to create the test reference or the test citation. And we have a little bit of a description about the test. And then finally, we have a review of the test down here. This one actually contains 2 reviews. You could translate this review into another language if you needed to or would like to. And if you would prefer to listen to this test review, you can choose to listen to it, and you could also choose a different accent if you wished. And when we go down here, the test review is going to give you a lot of interesting information. It's going to tell you items such as the reliability and the validity of the test. Again, giving me more information about this test. And here is the second review, because there were actually 2 reviewers of this test that wrote the 2 test reviews for the Mental Measurements Yearbook. When I go back up here, I could save this entire test review to my Google Drive so that I had access to that later on. If I chose to add this to a folder of information, that can be very useful if I'm searching for more than one test review. And in that case, I could save several test reviews, access them in a folder up here, and then I could choose to print them out all at once or email them. And I could also save. Now, if I were working with you with another database, such as PsycInfo or Education Source or ERIC, this would be the point where I would say that you could click on Cite to cite this test review. But we're not going to do that this time. The reason is that Mental Measurements Yearbook is a little bit unique. If I were to click on this Cite feature, this is not going to cite the actual test review from the Mental Measurements Yearbook. Instead, it's going to try to cite the test. And I really don't want that right now because I'm not looking at the actual test. I am reading the test review. And because of that, I'm going to show you something next, which is an example of the way that you could create an APA-style reference for this review of the test from the Mental Measurements Yearbook. Now, As with other APA-style references, I would strongly encourage you to check with your professor or your instructor first to see how they would want you to cite or format a test review in APA style. However, this is a model and an example of the way that you could formulate this test review for an APA-style reference for the test review from the Mental Measurements Yearbook database. The model to follow is to use the last name and the first initial of the review author or authors, followed by the year of the Mental Measurements Yearbook edition. Then you will put the actual name of the test review, and then you would do in, and then you actually need to list the editors of that specific edition of the Mental Measurements Yearbook. We would then put this title, that edition, such as the 20th or the 21st, Mental Measurements Yearbook, we would fit that in italics and put electronic version in brackets. And finally, we will say this was retrieved from the Burroughs Institute Mental Measurements Yearbook online database. The Burroughs Institute is actually the association that creates and maintains the Mental Measurements Yearbook, both print and online. And this is an example of the way that I cited the intelligence scale test review that I've been looking at. So I'm going to share my screen again and show you where I pulled this information from. We're going to go back to our test review of the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children. And this is why I had you click on the record itself. As we scroll down here, the test reviewers, which is what I need to put in the first part of the APA style reference, are listed here. These are the editors of the yearbook, which is also part of the reference. And this told me that this is actually from the 20th Mental Measurements Yearbook from 2017. So from this detailed record, this is where I will need to pull and add those elements to make a correct APA style reference for this review from the Mental Measurements Yearbook. Now, if you need any help when you get to this point, again, when we finish, I'm going to show you our contact information for the reference desk with a phone number and an email address, and you can always contact us if you need any help, or check with your professor and they'll be more than happy to help you with any of these elements. But you do have to look at those elements in the detailed record itself of the test review. Again, do not use the cite feature when it comes to the Mental Measurements Yearbook because it's just not going to be correct for what you need for the test review. So I showed you here how we could search for a specific test name. We're going to go back now to an advanced search because you may find yourself also just looking for examples of test reviews for different populations or different subjects. You don't really have a specific test name in mind. You're just looking for possibilities for tests and you want to read their reviews. We're going to clear this search. One way that I could do this is that I could limit my results just to find reviews that are available. And the reason I'm doing that is that the Mental Measurements Yearbook database, again, is a very large one. It goes back a number of years. And as a result, they may mention some tests, but they may not really have those detailed reviews available, just depending upon the age of the test. So I'm going to say I only want reviews available of the test that I'm looking for. I could also focus my search on a specific test category. So we're going to go down here. And I'm going to say now that I'm interested in tests that would fall under a test category of family and relationships. So I've limited my search here. And then I'm going to go back up to this. Now in this case, I'm not necessarily going to select a specific field. You remember that for the first time for the test name, I selected the test name, TI for test name. There are other ways that you can limit your search if you know some of this information. However, if you don't, you can just leave this as select a field optional. And I'm just going to type the word children. Now see what's happening here? When I started to type the word children, I wound up with some suggested terms that I could search for any test dealing with family and relationships. I could search for children or adolescents or youth or child or teenager. And sometimes when I see these suggested ways of searching, I like to add them because I like to broaden a search and see what is out there rather than limiting a search too much by a very specific keyword. So we're going now to search. And I have 34 results. Again, I searched on children or adolescents or youth or child or teenager. I did review available, and I did a test category of family and relationships. And I'm finding some rather interesting ones here. There's one called the Parenthood Questionnaire, but that's a little bit older. Remember, I told you that there's a lot of information, and it goes back quite a way in the Mental Measurement Yearbook database. Now here's one that's called Family Child Care Environment Rating Scale, and it's a 3rd edition. As I did with the Weschler one, I'm going to click specifically on that link. And this will give me that same information, the purpose, the population, the time it takes to administer it. This prize is actually current as of last year, as of 2020. And a published test description. And then as I scroll down once more, there is the actual test review. So I can read that and see if that's something that I might be interested in obtaining more information about. And we'll go back here. Thank you for watching this video. Always remember that you can ask for help from the Emporia State University librarian that is assigned to your department. If you don't know who that librarian is, check with your professor or your instructor, and they can tell you who that librarian is, and we'd be very happy to help you. You can also call us at 620-341-5207, and that will get you to our reference desk. Or you can email us at libref01@emporia.edu. And we can connect you with a librarian that will help you in your specific research need, not only for the Mental Measurement Yearbook, but for anything you happen to be researching. Take care, and thank you for watching.